these tools can kind of create superpowers.
These are the worst versions of the tools we will ever use. Ethics,
safety, governance.
This is AI. It's here, and let's see what we can do with it.
Welcome to A Journalist Guide to AI. I'm Yumi Wilson, your host and a broadcast journalism professor at SF State. I spend a whole lot of time thinking about how artificial intelligence is changing the game for journalism, the media, and the people who rely on it. And right now, we're at a turning point. One of the oldest promises in journalism is simple: protect your sources. But today, many reporters are uploading interviews to AI transcription tools without fully knowing where these recordings are going, who can access them, or how they may be used. My guest today is Lasse Finderup, founder of Good Tape, an AI transcription tool originally developed inside the Danish media company Zetland. It's now used by journalists around the world, and he's also been thinking deeply about how to use AI tools without putting sources at risk. Lasse, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Exciting to be here.
So let's get right to it. When a journalist uploads an interview to a transcription tool, what happens to that recording?
Oh, it depends what transcription tool. I think some solve it. We all solve it in different manners. I think we decided to solve it in-house. So we've built our own thing. And so we know exactly where everything goes, both in terms of where does it go, just like geographically. Does it leave a certain jurisdiction? Who will have access to it? But basically, when a journalist uploads a tape, a lot of different stuff can happen. We do a lot of pre-processing to the files to make sure that when we then pass it through our transcription engine, it's of the best quality possible. It's been sort of, we take out silences, we take out noise, we do a lot of conversion into the right file format. And then there's a lot of magic that happens in the transcription engine itself. And then once it comes out, there's a lot of post-processing as well. And all of these things happen on different layers and in different models. So that's also what is important to understand, that a transcription tool isn't necessarily just, I can also build my own whisper model, which is speech to text. It's a lot of how do you cut up the file? How do you process it? How do you stitch it back together? There's a whole other layer on top of that, which is speaker labeling. How do you determine who said what? And that's sort of part of the transcription, but it's a whole different pipeline. Like it doesn't touch whisper when you do speaker labeling. So I think there's a lot of of course, I find it super interesting, but for a journalist, from their point of view, it's just a transcription, and it just needs to be as good as possible, and hopefully also as safe as possible.
Yeah, your tool, Good Tape, it sounds like it can do what I'm more, before I heard about Good Tape, I heard about Otter AI, Fireflies, Rev.com, which has been around for a long time. So when I think of, these tools, I'm thinking they're very helpful. I'm recording interviews on it. I'm sure many journalists out there think the same thing. But what is different about those tools compared to your tool?
I think if you go into both Rev's and Otter's terms of service and you do a Command F, like you search for word and you search for, I think you can search for perpetuity or train, then you'll learn that whenever you upload some data to their services, it's not necessarily yours anymore, which is the super scary part.
That is scary.
Yeah, it's the first time where I've never told anyone they should read terms of service. I've never done it in my life before I started Good Tape, but now I've made it like a habit. Whenever there's a new tool, I go into the terms of service, do a quick Command F on the word train or rights or perpetuity is usually used in there because someone found a nice way of saying it, and it doesn't seem as scary as it probably is. And then everyone's just sort of more or less copied the same thing. Whenever you upload something to our service, we will then have the right to use it and to improve our models, which is just another word of saying we'll train on your data. In for perpetuity, I think is how they.
That is
So it's
absolutely crazy.
It's scary. Like, it's actually scary. Yeah.
So one tip that you're saying right now is for journalists out there trying to protect their sources and make sure their information is confidential, which is probably what they're saying to their sources. If you're using transcription tools, read the fine print.
Yeah.
And do a Command F to make it a little easier. Control F if you have a PC, or Command F if you have a Mac.
Yeah, or like use AI to check for AI. Just go in Command A, copy it, paste it into ChatGPT, and ask, "Will this service train on my data?" Then you'll find out. It takes 20 seconds.
This might be a tangent, but since you brought up ChatGPT, there's been a lot of news stories and a lot of discussion around ChatGPT versus Claude right now, and versus other AI tools. Do you have any thoughts on which tools might stand out or might be safer, might be better for journalists?
I think Anthropic couldn't have gotten better. I don't know into depth how they work. So again, do the Command F, but they couldn't have gotten better marketing in terms of trustworthiness when they said no to the Pentagon contract, and then OpenAI couldn't have gotten worse by saying yes and just swooping in and taking it in a day. And so if we would have been using OpenAI at the time, we would have canceled it. Because it's just the morality of the different services you're using is just everything. So yeah, like be super aware, I think.
Just for listeners, just in case you're coming into the AI game and you're fairly new, Anthropic is Claude and OpenAI is ChatGPT. Obviously, there are a lot of other AI tools out there, Perplexity, Gemini, of course. There are a number of tools that you can use for various reasons, but the conversation right now is around Anthropic versus OpenAI. So thank you for that clarification. Now let's get back to Good Tape. How did this happen? Like, how did a media company, Zetland, decide, for our reporters, we're going to create our own solution? Because I actually think that this idea that journalists and even journalism students can take their own power, take control. What do you need? How do you solve it? I think this is the time to do it. So could you tell me a little bit more about the journey to where you are now in terms of Good Tape?
I think it's the best way you can start a company is to try and fix a problem you have yourself. And that was definitely the case back then. I joined like a month or two into the journey. But basically it was because there was a guy in the tech team of Zetland who at every lunch he listened to the journalists sort of complaining, I hate this about my job. I know I have to do 4 hours of this and I want to die every time I do it. And then he was like, yeah, but and then he was like, well, let me try and make a solution to it. And then once he did that, and everyone, I think a couple of them started crying because they're like, I don't have to do this anymore. Then also, like, hands down to Tal, the CEO of Zetland, he's always been very like open-minded. So he was like, let's try and put it online, like for people to use it for free. And then it just exploded, and because suddenly there was something here that was built with journalists in mind. Maybe Otter was still there, but that's for online meetings. Usually a journalist doesn't interview necessarily someone online. They go there. So to have a service that was sort of meant for long format, in-depth interviews, where you're recording with the purpose of using something in the recording in your product. That's like a very specific. We've spent a lot of time because a lot of different industries have the need for transcription, but there's a different workflow and there's a different goal. Whereas it's very specific to journalists and also researchers, for that matter, that they start the recording with the intention of taking something from that recording to be part of their final sort of end goal, which is an article or a paper. And so there's all of these small intricacies that surround the transcription need, where we're sort of building for journalists and also researchers for that matter, but journalists as a primary.
Let's talk a little bit about reliability or accuracy. A lot of AI tools are good, but you kind of have to check them like a 12-year-old. Like they're really, really smart, but you kind of have to make sure, especially when it comes to quotes, and making sure that what has been transcribed is verbatim or accurate, 100% accurate. How accurate is good tape?
I would say it's as accurate as it can be, and I know that's such a vague statement, but it's also to say whenever we're dealing with the spoken word or language, it's difficult to put a number on it. It's something I see a lot of competitors do, where they write 99.8%, and it's like, well, okay, what if I try with my Danish accent? Is it then still 99.8? Or what if I try when it's windy? What if I try? I speak English and then another person just suddenly speaks Danish to me. So there's so many variables and intricacies that it just becomes untrustworthy if someone writes, we're 99.9% accurate. But I will say we are as accurate as you can get it. And we're constantly reinvesting in it. We're sort of in product development, we work with different tracks, and the accuracy is always a track. Independent of what features we're working on, accuracy is always a track that takes priority. Because at the end of the day, we're in the business of saving people time. And if we can reduce the time of having to check something even further, that's always something we will do. And then there's the other part of accuracy can also be a thing you can improve on as a user. And if I say something in this interview and you go, that's a good quote, I'm going to use that, but you get back to it a month from now, so you're not entirely sure how I put it. In Good Tape, you can listen back to the quote that you want to use, and we've made it so even we have like a summary functionality where we host our own large language model, so you can do it in a compliant way. Whenever that generates something, if that says Lasse also spoke negatively about when AI tools train on data, we will give the source of that statement directly in the transcription. So you can always, I heard someone call it like an audit trail. You can trail it all the way back to when I said it, which is key for journalists.
Absolutely.
To always cover their back and say it is what he said.
That's right. Put it on the blame game goes to the source itself and not you for making mistakes. You mentioned languages. So I went to Laos was it a while ago in the fall, but I remember the students and the faculty there at the National University said, we prefer this model because this tool, because our language is not well understood by ChatGPT. That's what they had said at the time. Now things change at the speed of light, so we don't know how accurate things are today, right? March 2026. However, what are your thoughts on your product? By the way, that word product takes on special meaning. I don't know if you've seen the McDonald's CEO eating an Archburger.
No, I've seen the fuss about it. I haven't seen the video itself.
It's just funny. Anyway, he says the word product, and now every time I think of the word product, I think of that. Moving right along, how is your product, or how is Good Tape when it comes to translating languages?
So sort of there's a few different paths you can take to improve accuracy. You can sort of go on a model level where you try and fine tune the model itself, or you can go on more like an inference level, where that's where we've focused. Because you can, whatever efforts you make to that part of the engine, will sort of translate is a wrong word to use here, but sort of be used by all the languages. Whereas if you train, for example, let's say we try and make it better in Danish.
Yes.
So we train on a publicly available specific Danish data set. then it becomes better in Danish, but it doesn't become better in Cambodian or Vietnamese or what? I don't actually know what language they speak. Is it just called Lao?
Lao. Yeah,
Lao.
exactly. I learned that. So.
And so it's like we've focused on the metaphor I usually use is there's the model itself, which we utilize Whisper, and then there's everything around it. And the model itself you can sort of view as the PlayStation game, and then there's the PlayStation. Because at some point there's going to be a model that's better than Whisper. So if you've optimized the PlayStation to make better graphics, it runs faster, the sound is crispier, then you can plug a new model into it and it'll be so much better. So we focused on improving that layer rather than the language specific layer, and it's translated quite well.
If you're working with interviews, research, or long form content, this tool can save you days of work. I'm Yumi Wilson, host of A Journalist's Guide to AI and a broadcast journalism professor, and I've been using Good Tape to streamline my own workflow. It's already one of the best tools out there for journalists and academics. It's got accurate transcriptions, turnaround in minutes, and it's got useful features that actually make sense for how we work. You get speaker labels, smart search, AI summaries, bulk uploads, and a really clean system for notes. They even have a recording app to streamline your workflow. But where it really becomes powerful is in real-world use. For example, I'm working on my latest book project. It's about journalist thinking in the age of AI. How timely, you might say. But I am able to upload all of my research, my interviews and recordings and source material all in one place. And then I get this structured overview in minutes instead of days. I've also conducted hours of interviews, and I'm just starting. But what's wonderful is I can transcribe everything quickly and get precise, usable transcripts without spending endless time editing. And we got to talk about security because that's a non-negotiable in journalism. Good Tape is ISO certified and GDPR compliant. And they never ever use your files to train AI models. That means your sources, your data, and your work stay fully protected. For me, that level of trust is just as important as the features. If you're serious about your work and protecting it, Good Tape is absolutely worth using. Try it yourself at goodtape.io. How many countries are using Good Tape? How many people are using Good Tape? Do you have those kind of numbers?
I think we're 2.8 million people that have used it over time. So it's like an accumulated, how many unique people have used Good Tape over our 3-year existence. But we've had a user in every country in the world except North Korea. So like we have like a map internally that colors in with like a degree of, I think it's blue, how many users have used it. And the only one that's gray, because no one's used it, is North Korea. But we've had like a user in Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, just everywhere. It's pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing. And what are the costs? I mean, how do people find out about Good Tape? How do they use it?
I think, first of all, as other companies, we run ads. I sound like Mark Zuckerberg in that Senate. We run ads, but then also word of mouth. Like we can definitely see that when we get traction in a country, for example, or in a company, then it sort of spreads. Our third biggest market, for example, is Taiwan. I think the fourth biggest now, actually, but one of, like, they used to be our second biggest market, and that was definitely just word of mouth. We didn't run any ads in Taiwan; it just spread because someone talked about it, then someone else talked about it, and then they were like, "Oh, it works in traditional Chinese. Let's use that." So
that's pretty impressive. And what are the costs?
The costs to getting more users, or to?
Well, no, I mean, like if someone wants to sign up for Good Tape and use it, is there? Yes.
So it's 20 euros a month, and then of course you can get a discount if you go annual. But we're trying to.
Yeah. reasonable, because that kind of runs in line with all the other services. I know I probably pay for about 10 AI tool services, as I learn and use some of these things, but really just kind of trying to dive in as an educator, trying to train the next generation of hopefully people who can get into the change agent game of telling stories that impact the world. I want
Yeah,
to
not
make sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
we can get into it maybe, but we have a really cool product that we have in alpha now. They'll be out in beta and probably tomorrow, which is like a layer on top of transcription. I think it will be world changing, but every founder will say that. But I definitely think that it has something crazy to it, that I'd be excited to pitch you.
Okay, so you're not going to tell me right now.
Oh, I can.
I would love to.
So we haven't found a name for it yet. But the term that best describes it is we call it artificial memory. And what it basically is, it's a clever layer to your transcription archive, meaning it will be able to enrich everything you do in the future with everything you've done in the past. So the best example I can give is if you interview me now today and I say, I make a statement about the Danish efforts on reducing CO2 emissions. And I say, we're doing such a good job, I think we should continue it. And then you interview me again in a year's time. And you ask me a similar question, not necessarily the exact same, just we talk about Danish politics. And I say, I've always said that we don't do enough to reduce CO2 emissions. We've always done terribly. For good sake then to provide you with the insight from that interview you did a year ago that you've certainly forgotten, because you do an interview with a new person every day, and say, this is vastly different from what Lasse said a year ago, then you have a whole article in itself, because I suddenly contradict myself.
That would be a game changer for sure, because with archives being hard to kind of access quickly for journalists, and actually I can even think for students this would be amazing, because sometimes students will come up with a story idea and think, okay, this is the angle. But if they had the research in front of them, they could see that it's been done, or this person said that, and how do you build upon the information that's out there? So when you talk about this product coming out in beta, does that mean that people who subscribe, people who are using the product, can then test this out, or is it going to be select few who get to kind of access memories or past interviews?
Depends when this will air.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Probably when this airs, we will have it ready for beta. Like for pros to what we write, it's in beta mode. But basically the idea of switching the whole core of the journalistic exercise from being a, what do we call it? Like a linear exercise to being an accumulative exercise.
Yeah.
Because the more you do, the more you can enrich what you do tomorrow. And the same goes when you then move from an individual level to a company level. Then if you could be reminded by something I told one of your colleagues last year, then you're in like a whole superhuman world where to be reminded of something you never knew is a whole new territory of things, where media companies can start accumulating internal knowledge in interviews, and thereby making everything they do in the future more and more valuable, because you won't just have an interview, you'll have an interview enriched with everything you've done in the past. Contradictions, similarities, agreements, nuances, supporting arguments. It'll be crazy.
And different from archives of published material, this material will be of interviews that maybe some of it was published and some of it was not. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me quickly say, because I don't think I was clear about it. Who owns the recordings, who owns the interviews once they upload and are using Good Tape? Who owns that?
No, and that's a question everyone should ask. So I love that you're asking it. So we're one of the very few ones that will sign the agreement that we won't train on your data. We don't touch it. We don't look at it. It's your own data. We even currently now, if you're part of a company that, let's say, a large company has 20 licenses with us and you have a license, the company can't even see your transcriptions. They are yours. That's
amazing.
How far we've gone on privacy, because we also know that it has to be a thing where, like when I say that you will be reminded of something that I told one of your colleagues last year, only if that colleague has made it available. Like Good Tape won't just look into archives of your colleague, only if it's been sort of made available. So privacy is everything we do, and that's why product development takes a little longer for us, because we need like a whole session on just how do we maintain privacy, how do we maintain data security here, because it's super easy to build the features, but to do it in a compliant, secure, and private way is where it's difficult.
As we think about the future, where would you say Good Tape is going, given so much is changing when we think about AI?
So I think with this new layer that we're adding to transcription, I think we're going to be at another place. We won't just be a transcription tool. We'll be the place where you put your recording to make that interview worth more than it is standalone. But we'll also be, most importantly, the trustworthy place to put your stuff. Because I think what's very characteristic to a journalist is that you're handling data on behalf of someone else.
Absolutely.
Which is something to really not underestimate, especially when you're talking AI. There's a lot of AI talk about, do they train on your data? Where you're putting your data? It becomes a little bit more scary or important when the question is, do they train on your source's data? Where you're putting your source's personal data? And then it becomes a crucial question to ask. So I think trust will be key, and like being the good guys that will sort of sign a contract that says we won't train on your data, is the bet that we're making, that everything will be, you have to be the good guys, not necessarily the ones that can do it the fastest and with the most bling, but be the good, proper, sturdy place where you can get a data processing agreement, where we'll sign that we do things correctly in a good manner. And then just be like close to the users, listen to them, and ask and understand their challenges and their problems, and then it's up to us to find the best way of making life easier for them. Like for example, a very simple thing is we've just developed an app that looks like this. I can't show, because I was about to show, but I don't know what recordings I have. But we've developed an app, which a very simple thing of instead of you bringing your Zoom recorder and all these crazy things, you can bring your phone and it gives you active feedback on the quality of the sound that you're getting, and then when you're done, it automatically transcribes this and puts it into your Good Tape account. Not a flashy, big, crazy feature, and we could have built all sorts of agent setups, but the journalist just needs a seamless flow of getting the interview into Good Tape.
Yeah.
And then I hope we're just going to get more users, go more international, spread out more. We have users in a lot of countries and we have customers in a lot of countries, but to spread out a little bit more and get known in more countries is the dream.
Well, certainly, I think as journalists hear about Good Tape, I think they're going to become quite interested in it, because I think especially now that there is all this concern about privacy and leaks and all of that, we're looking for tools that we can use to improve our production, improve our workflow, but we want to be safe about it. So I think you have provided us an answer to that. How can people find out more about you or about Good Tape?
They can go to our website, goodtape.io. ask colleagues. At least if you're based in Europe, there's a high likelihood someone will have heard of us. Look up reviews. I think we have pretty good, honest reviews, and we don't hide anything. And then reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like I'm super happy to talk to customers and users and potential users, especially now that we're moving into more, let's call it novel land of providing help to journalists to do faster work with a higher quality. Feedback is just everything, and we can never talk too much to customers, and I'll happily cancel meetings to talk to customers.
Excellent. We're going to hold you to that. All right. Any last thoughts?
I think there's a movement at the moment internally. What I'm hearing, at least, we mostly talk to European media houses still. Would love to talk to more US based, but there's like an internal conflict going on between the journalists and the heads of IT. Of the journalists are sort of a little bit afraid of AI and they don't really know where to start. Some are then at the forefront and they've already adopted all sorts of tools, and then heads of IT are just sort of in the middle of it, going,
Right.
what is being used? What's going on? Do you have a data processing agreement in place? Have you checked where data flows? So I think it's important that they talk very openly internally, that there's not a culture of sort of not being, what do you call it, like comfortable enough to show what you're using. And then also, it's also now on the table of the heads of IT to be at the forefront, so and be proactive about it, and give the journalists a vetted tool where you have a data processing agreement in place and say, we've done the work, this is trustworthy, use GoodTip, or another tool for that matter. But to be proactive and go ahead before the journalists just start adopting all sorts of tools, because it's not necessarily their expertise to look into data processing flows and compliance levels and ISO certifications. That's not what they should be good at. So someone needs to do it for them. And GoodTape and many other tools, if it's a tool that you will use for your work, your company should pay for it. Like, you shouldn't pay yourself for a tool that you want to use for your work. And that's very much how I feel about it. So if you want to use GoodTape and for your job, you should go to your IT and say, please get this for me. That's much rather how we'd do it.
That would be amazing. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining me on A Journalist's Guide to AI. For everyone out there watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify or Apple, I want to thank you for joining this program. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave a review so that more journalists and communicators can know what is going on with AI. Until next time, enjoy.